Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Stahls TV Morning Show. I'm Courtney.
And I'm Josh, and as always, we have an exciting episode, or at least we think so. And the audience keeps growing, so you guys keep coming back for more, and we appreciate you joining us every week. Today's topic is all about decorating for sports, and even more than that, sourcing blank apparel for sports and athletic decoration. So, of course, we're sort of gearing up for spring sports, but we're going to cover more than that. We'll focus a little bit on spring sports and the basics of decoration, advanced decoration, and then we're going to move into trends that we'll see throughout the year. Now, before we jump in, we just had a lot of folks traveling from the Stahls TV office to various trade shows around the country, giving seminars and classes. We recently did a class at the DAC show in Kansas City, where Mark Marola from Stahls TV did a class on trends in apparel decorating, hands-on, that had great feedback. Jody, who's done classes on Stahls TV, just came back from the APA show, which is basically Awards and Personalization show in Las Vegas, where we were showing some new laser cutting processes for heat transfer films, and there's classes on Stahls TV about that. And you were on the road too. Tell our viewers where you were.
I was in Houston, Texas, visiting the CAMX show, and so the show is actually still going on, but I'm back here in the studios getting ready for another trade show, but I got to talk with a lot of decorators, and particularly bookstores. And so the CAMX show actually gears towards college bookstores and the college retail market in general. So people that are decorating for the college market. And there were a lot of interesting challenges from the decorators that we spoke with there. We did education and showed them kind of the heat printing process and ways to grow their business. But the challenge we saw is something that we see, I think, a lot with custom apparel. And the challenge was, how do I make my apparel stand out separate from what's in the retail stores and the big box stores, because the college markets are really starting to compete a lot with the Walmarts and the Targets and everything.
So you dropped your mic. That's what Joe's trying to signal us from behind the thing. So you need to attach that back in. But hopefully you weren't too unattached from what she was saying. So basically we have the CAMX, the college bookstores. They want to make their apparel stand out. Obviously, these are retail spaces, which is where a lot of our decorators aspire to be. What were some of the other challenges? Just turning inventory, or why were they attracted to heat printing?
Yeah, turning inventory, being able to personalize items, so being able to customize graphics or customize apparel to turn it quicker. Again, that comes with the standing out against the big box stores and making their apparel unique to what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, customization sells products. I've heard that pretty much across industries, whether it's a college bookstore at retail or whether it's a e-commerce retail store. One of the top sporting goods dealers out there for soccer specifically added customization onto footwear to help move their inventory, separate them, and grow their sales to the point where they were giving away the personalization just to move the high margin footwear. And we're going to press some shoes later in today's episode for you as well. Okay, so let's get to today's topic. Do a lot of trade show travel. If you want to catch us in our classes at any trade show, you can just click on the live events tab on stahlstv.com, and you'll see on location, and you'll see that we have upcoming classes in Arlington at the NBM show. We have upcoming classes next week at ISS Atlantic City, and then even beyond that, they're all scheduled there on Stahls TV. So sports and sports decoration. So before we can even talk about product that we're going to customize with, which we'll go over, for those that aren't selling in the sports market, where can they go to get blank apparel? What are some of the best sources out there in the industry for that?
Yeah, so I have a couple of different sources. I've actually pulled some of them up on my computer just to walk through, but there are a ton of blank apparel suppliers when it comes to looking for team uniforms. Let me go ahead and re-show that. There we go. So with that, we've got the Teamwork Athletic, which is one of the ones we use the most here at the Stahls TV Morning Show. They have team jerseys for basically any type of sport, including baseball, basketball, softball, track, lacrosse, everything that's coming up here in the spring. And we're also seeing a lot of different trendy styles throughout their items. One huge trend we'll talk about a little bit here later in the show is sublimation in jerseys and performance wear. And so they've got a lot of items that mix together performance wear with sublimation, also some fun striping looks and things like that for the spring season. Another one that offers a lot of really trendy fan wear and just new styles of jerseys is Holloway. So we follow them a lot for warm-ups, fan wear specifically, and then also baseball jerseys, basketball jerseys, a variety of different styles there for a ton of different sports. Another one that we've had here featured at the Stahls TV show just with some of their unique blanks is Badger, and so they have a lot of really trendy sublimated pieces with patterns and some of the new heathered looks that we're seeing again in fan wear and in through jerseys, and so they're another one to look out for. A couple other ones that we have just that we work with some here at the Stahls TV morning show is A4. They feature a lot of really unique performance wear. I'm a big fan of Beaumark, Augusta, just for different styles and different trends as well.
Yeah, so a good collection there. I think you named 5 or 6. Teamwork, very nice range, company based out of California, so you can get selection across many different sports. And then I think you'll find yourself sourcing from multiple providers that do well in warm-ups or a particular sport. But some great magazines out there in the sporting goods world are like Team Intelligence magazine that you see a lot of the advertisers on their website. I think the website's teaminsightmag.com, where you can see a lot of different suppliers of blank apparel, but certainly Beaumark, Holloway, A4, Augusta, Badger, Teamwork are some of the top ones. And so once you find your source for team uniforms, then it becomes about how am I going to ultimately showcase this and really customize this for teams. And so when you look at decorating team uniforms, there are a variety of ways you could go. There's the heat printing route, which of course is what we'll focus on here at Stahls TV. There's the screen printing route to put names and numbers on uniforms. And then there's also the embroidery route specific to embroidered applique. In heat printing, where do we start? What are the basics for names and numbers?
Well, when it comes to the basics for names and numbers, we actually have a tool I'm going to switch to on Stahls.com. So if you go over to the Stahls.com website, it's just Stahls.com/catalog. You'll see a team decorator that you can actually download, keep as a reference tool next to your equipment. But the tool goes through a ton of different sports. We'll stop at baseball here for an example. Understanding the size of numbers and the size of names is absolutely key in printing jerseys. And so if you don't have that information, this is a good place to get it. And so it obviously tells you on adult versus youth what size numbers and name you would need so you can ensure you're meeting the guidelines that are needed with your local area or your high schools. There's a ton of potential with printing with schools in general, just with the pure size of the market. And so it's important to make sure you obviously are following the same names and number styles sizing wise. And then one thing I really like is just that this kind of gives some new ways. If you're printing and you've been printing for different sports for quite some time, it shows you some of the trends that we're seeing and how you can incorporate some of the pre-cut number styles or pre-spaced number styles to reach these markets. And so for baseball, this shows some really cool number styles. Obviously Pro Block, Team US, those are 2 standard fonts that we use in numbers. And then obviously you can get more creative with some really unique styles. I like the drop shadows and some of the fun striping styles that we're seeing a lot in numbers.
So basically this tool, number one, it's going to give you the sizing regardless of the decorating method that's for the sport. So it's a great tool regardless of the decoration method. And then more specific to Stahls' product offering and heat printing, it's going to give you the most popular fonts that are available in either pre-cut or pre-spaced numbers. And now those may be new terms for some of our viewers, pre-cut versus pre-spaced. So let's take a moment to explain those a little bit. Number one, what we have here is a set of pre-cut numbers. This can be any heat transfer film product. It happens to be Premium Plus, but it could easily be thermofilm, whatever it might be. You can pick your particular heat transfer film formula, but the idea here is these are loose numbers and they're pre-cut. This happens to be an interactive number font where I can mix and match the left and right digits for different looks onto team uniforms, which is really cool by itself. But when I look at this, the idea here is there's no waste. I get simply just the number from Stahls, from the supplier, and I can order this in packs. So it helps me reduce my cost of number customization, but knowing that I have to manually line these up at the heat press. And so if you look at the team decorator, Paul Sabatini, who's our sports marketing director, will recommend like a laser alignment guide for laying these out, especially for folks like you that can't line stuff up straight.
Right? Yeah.
Okay, but you actually may find yourself, instead of the pre-cut numbers, which is the lowest cost way to customize with a number to order the pre-space. Talk to us about the pre-space.
So this is more for people like me who can't line stuff up correctly and easily. Sometimes it just makes more sense to go to a pre-spaced number style where it's actually all spaced on a clear carrier, similar to the way you cut it with a vinyl cutter for a CAD-CUT number. This would be the same way you would do it. But for me, the big benefit is it always is pre-spaced with the right amount of gap space in between, and it's completely straight, so I don't need to really worry about making sure my numbers aren't crooked. So especially if you're adding a name to this, you can order them what we call player perfect, which includes a name on top, the gap space is there, and it allows you to have everything pre-spaced and ready to go. And so I'm a big fan of this style just for people that are especially new and maybe have multiple people pressing and you're worried about alignment, and that's really a big benefit of pre-space.
Yeah, so just basically as it comes off the vinyl cutter. If you have a vinyl cutter, you're very familiar with pre-spaced CAD-CUT materials. You cut them, everything remains in alignment on that sticky carrier. It also really allows you to be creative in your font selection. You see the little striping that we have in the font. That wouldn't be possible with pre-cut because I'd have to manually lay out each stripe, which would be an absolute nightmare. So those are the big differences. Pre-cut, cost-effective, pre-spaced, easier to line up, or more complex fonts. Both two choices if you want to heat print athletic numbers and pair them with names. The third choice that we want to show you for the basics of team numbering would be our screen print transfer numbers. Talk to us about these.
So these are very similar to a different number style, but they're actually a plastisol ink. So they're screen printed ink, just like you see with the plastisol screen printed transfers we show a lot here on the Stahls TV morning show. But these I actually really like because the numbers, when you start doing double digits, there's easy alignment just by being able to, assuming you have them up the correct direction, but being able to actually line them up. You'll see the grid marks on the back to put them together. So that's one big benefit that you guys see there. Being able to do multicolor is my main reason for going to screen printed transfers. You can kind of see it a little bit here on the screen, but two colors are manufactured into one, so it's one press, where with the pre-cuts or the pre-spaced, I have to do
Layers,
two applications and layer them. And so this way it's just one application. This is actually a blue and red number ready to go.
Yeah, so very easy for lining up when you get into the screen printed transfer numbers from Transfer Express. Once again, it's just a style you can get in a variety of fonts and ink formulas for performance wear or t-shirts. Major difference is two-color, multicolor, all in a single step versus heat transfer film, which needs to be layered. However, the transfer film numbers tend to be a little more abrasion resistant when you get into some of the athletic formulas like thermofilm and into contact sports. So just one sort of thing to be cautious of. So these are your basics. At this point, Joe, I just want to see if there's any questions from the audience about anything we've covered so far before we start reporting on trends and applications.
At this point, there are no questions, no.
Okay. So let's move over to the Fusion Heat Press, and I'd like to show a couple newer things that are coming out right now for athletic uniform decoration and sort of highlight some of the things we've already talked about. So number one is we have the sublimated or roller printed fabric. Basically the idea that these full patterns aren't going anywhere, whether it's a digital camo pattern or a camo hex pattern from Sanmar. Regardless of the pattern in the fabric, patterns are extremely popular, especially in spring sports such as baseball, softball. So one of the challenges of this fabric is that it's very tough to decorate, specifically with bleed through and the basically dyes from the fabric wanting to come through your number. And so we have a product that's launching next week at Atlantic City, and that product is called CAD-CUT Glaze. So this is your sneak preview. We'll launch it next week and update a video to the site. But CAD-CUT Glaze is basically like a transparent metallic. And so this, if you put it on a light color fabric, it's going to just show a very low metallic foil. But if you put it on a dark fabric, it really comes to life. And so given that these sublimated dyes want to bleed through prints, we're going to play to the print and decorate it with a unique transfer such as CAD-CUT Glaze that's going to not block the sublimated fabric but sort of play to it and create a really cool effect. So let me start by preheating this, and I'll give you a close-up view here in a second. I need to step in front of my heat press, make sure I have it loaded on straight. I'm going to do a little preheat. I always recommend anytime you're dealing with pattern fabrics that you use a cover sheet during all steps of the process to make sure you're not going to get any transfer residue from the fabric onto your press, because ultimately that could transfer to the next clean white garment that you load onto the machine. And once I've positioned that into place, I'll lay my transfer down. Let me switch to the overhead view here. And we can see I have my shirt loaded straight. This particular one is our CAD-CUT Glaze in the color silver. It's actually called Silver Shift. Position that into place, cover the whole thing with a cover sheet. And another big benefit of this product, in addition to the look that we're going to see, is that it applies at a low temp. So all the new stuff that we come out with pretty much applies at a low temp. This particular one can go as low as 265. Press it for the recommended application. And then it's a cold peel, so I need to let this cool down before I remove it. And so while I'm waiting on that to cool, and I'll bring it back on to show you the finished result, what I want to do is show you the next application as well, which is going to be on a football uniform using a similar concept with our pre-space number, but adding a name bar that's going to be out of our clear gloss material. And so I'll load the shirt, conduct my preheat, grab my pre-space number, position that down. Notice how it's quick and easy placement down onto the platen. And then I've cut, once again, just another material. This particular one is clear gloss, where I've cut the name pre-space. You can kind of see the name on there. It says Edgar. This comes in both a gloss and a matte version. It's called SuperTech Clear Gloss, and it's a great way in trend to add this sort of understated finish to the shirt for the player name, because in high school sports especially, it's not as much about the player name as it is about the team. So we'll see a lot of folks just eliminate the player name altogether, but here you can add a cool look and still incorporate the player name into the jersey customization with a unique material such as this clear gloss or clear matte. Once again, I'm working with a cold peel here on this particular product. Premium Plus is a warm peel, so I can start peeling this. And we've done it in one of those newer font styles in pre-space and a metallic silver, so I get a really cool effect. And I'm actually going to spin that around, which is a nice thing about having these threadable heat presses. I can spin right on the press, and I'll press the front number while the back number's cooling down. And so in this case, the reason I want to do the front, I'll do the same pre-space combination. I'd recommend you preheat the front as well. I'm not, because I'm saving on time here. And then put the clear matte down as my name. So I want to show you the difference between the matte and the gloss, which is why I'm pressing both sides, and press that for the recommended settings. So while this is pressing, Courtney, if you don't mind, can you peel the backing off of that one? And then I'll bring it back on the heat press. Once again, the Premium Plus is a warm peel. And then I'll wait for this to cool down, and we'll bring the other one back on the press so we can take a look at it here. So you can see how this was the CAD-CUT Glaze in the silver, and I'll sort of move it because it changes based on the direction, but it's just a unique way to play to this fabric, especially for all-star uniforms or even game uniforms. It's just a really cool effect. You get the metallic sheen to it, and you get something that stretches and recovers. And see here, we followed the same trend by replacing out the player name with a slogan for the team, like never quit, whatever it may be. So this one should be cooled down. And so I'll bring that back onto the press and show you this clear gloss. You can see it's almost like a wet look, which is just really cool, especially when you get into these charcoal and black and trending fabrics. You can see the effect there with the name. And then on the front, I've already peeled the matte, and so you can see it almost looks like laser etched above that number. So just two really cool trends that follow in the same thing for athletic decoration, which would be the glaze craze, or sort of the semi-transparent materials, whether that's the gloss, the matte, or the new CAD-CUT Glaze that has the iridescent metallic. By the way, that'll come in 5 colors: silver, gold, red, royal, and green to help you spur spring sports sales this season. And so I'm going to turn it over to Courtney, where we're going to talk more about heat printing popular accessories that are trending.
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about trends we're seeing in the accessory part of the sport business. If you're printing right now for spring sports, particularly baseball, one big trend is to personalize the underside of flat bill hats, and flat bill hats in general for personalization and decorating are very, very trendy. For that, we're using the under the bill platen that can be put in any electronics heat press. I'm featuring the Max Press here. And then I've actually created my design in a template that's going to go from corner to corner and completely personalize the underside of this flat bill hat. And so with this, the templates you can actually get inside of cadworkslive.com, so you can get a perfect print for any hat style. This one is actually from AutoCap, so they have a variety of hat styles to use. I'm going to grab a cover sheet to cover up my hat real quick. And keep in mind there's a lot of different insets on this platen which allow you to do up to 4 hats at one time, just ensuring that they're all locked and loaded and in place and fitting in there perfectly. Now this is going to apply at 320 degrees for 15 seconds. So I'm going to lock down that heat press.
And this is our Stahls Max Press clamshell.
Correct, and I'm using a CAD-CUT fashion film for the personalization, just for the fine detail and different details that I needed for the baseball here. So I can peel that back, so I've got a completed design on the flat bill hat there, completely personalized. Of course, if I wanted to, I could take this over to the CAT press and personalize the top of the hat as well, or direct embroidering it, depending on what your style is for printing onto hats. So it offers a lot of finishes for that personalization. And then the next style I'm going to print is actually going to be a shoe customization. So Josh had mentioned in the beginning of the morning show some businesses that have had the opportunity to really increase sales through shoes personalization, and that's really a big market for team business right now. I'm going to take out my flat bill platen and set that off to the side and grab the shoe platen, which makes for perfect customization onto shoes. Lock that back into place, so you can see it's quick and easy to change out with the quick change platens. The shoes actually just load right onto the platen. Always when you're personalizing shoes, I recommend loading the shoe on, getting a good feel for it, making sure you're getting a flat, even print surface before you start cutting your graphics, and making sure you have enough room for your graphic as well.
And then anytime you change platens,
double check my pressure. Always learning tips on the morning show, so I'm going to take these off and check my pressure.
We even complete each other's.
Looks like it was perfect.
Come on, you're supposed to say sentences.
All right, so I'm going to load this back on there. I am also going to line up my numbers, so depending on where your designs are on your shoes, you can get creative with your placement. Also, keep in mind, next to my heat press, I have a heat seal tape. So if I'm worried about the numbers sliding around, I can go ahead and tape them down. And that way they'll stay in place and be exactly where I wanted them whenever I cover them up. So lastly, what I'm going to do is I want to protect the shoes from being burned or scorched underneath the hot heat of the heat press. So I'm going to cover them with a flexible application pad, which works really well for non-laundered applications that are heat sensitive, so particularly these synthetic shoes. And then I'm going to apply them for the recommended application. So I'm using the Premium Plus product, which is traditionally 10 seconds. I'm going to actually increase the timer to about 25 seconds just to make it through the full application. That way I'm ensuring I'm getting a durable print, because that flexible application pad, keep in mind, is taking out some of the heat. So I want to make sure to eliminate any issues with durability.
And then just as a side note, where possible, fashion film is a great product for shoes.
Absolutely.
So we got mixed up with the Premium Plus transfers here, but we would recommend fashion film as the go-to product for your footwear customization.
Correct.
I think there's a question coming in, Joe.
Yes, the question is, what material are the shoes made of, and are there any shoes that you would stay away from decorating?
These shoes are actually made of a synthetic type of rubber or silicone, so it's just like a traditional athletic shoe. And I'm peeling back the numbers here, but I would try to stay away from any shoes that have a lot of decoration on them or a lot of raised areas. So you can see this one's pretty flat. This is actually all just a print on here, so this isn't raised at all. If you're worried about having raised areas, that's going to cause some challenges. Netting, things like that you see in athletic shoes, that'll cause some challenges being able to print these successfully.
So we'll try to get you a close-up on that shoe, Joe. Sorry to throw you off there, just to make sure everybody's seeing it here on camera. But ultimately, the nice thing is when you add the flex pad, it protects the shoe, whether it's a soft leather or soft plastic. As long as Courtney mentioned, you're not running too close to the as long as you're not running too close to the actual seam of the shoe on like a hard drop off or a ledge, then you should be fine customizing it. Of course, like anything, this is a unique application, so we'll always recommend you test one first, but we have decorators that use literally tens of thousands of heat transfer films, fashion film, for shoe customization, and we've had this shoe plan out now for I think the better part of 5 years. Actually, I just brought a catalog in today. I can't reveal the decorator, but I got a mail order piece where they're personalizing Chuck Taylor's The Converse shoe for kids with kids' names, and they're selling like hotcakes. So cool application for sports and beyond.
Absolutely.
So trends, there's a lot of them in team uniform decoration. We chose to pick some of the key highlights that are coming. The sublimated fabrics are tough, so the glaze is a cool product for that. The sort of tonal effects are hot right now, so the clear matte, the clear gloss are great. The accessory items sometimes can get you in the door for personalizing the underbill of caps if there's an existing decorator that's entrenched in the team business that isn't doing that. So what other types of questions do we have from our audience today regarding decorating for sports?
The question refers back to the press. They want to know its availability and which brand is that particular press that you're heat pressing on.
So we have two different presses that we displayed here today. We have the Stahls Max press, which is the black press that Courtney was using for the hat bill and the shoe. That's readily available from Stahls.com or TransferExpress.com. We happen to be using the 16 by 20 loaded on the counter caddy, which is great for threading jerseys and other athletic items. That's a great press, a great price point where you get quality Stahls brand for as low price as possible. And then we had the Fusion heat press that I was using that was the swing away draw press. Once again, that's probably the high end, readily available. It gives you the heat-free workspace for layout, especially if you're doing a lot of the pre-cut numbers where there's more layout time under the press.
And then going back to the shirt you heat printed in the early part, won't the sublimated shirt also bleed onto the bottom platen? You talked about covering it to protect the heating element.
Typically, we don't have an issue with the sublimated shirt bleeding onto the bottom platen, especially because the inside of the shirt is typically white. So, I mean, could it sublimate through? Perhaps, but usually the bottom platen, we thread the shirt on, so it only would impact the inside of the shirt anyway, so we don't have any issues there.
Does the hat bill also fit the Fusion?
It does, yeah. So both heat presses allow you to do all of the interchangeable platens, the hat press and the shoe one as well.
Yeah, which is great. And the only really platen that won't work with the clamshell style presses would be the leg and sleeve, which we didn't show here today, but that would be the only one that you would want to make sure you had a Fusion style for. But we sell a lot of heat presses every year, and we always think one's going to stand out over the next. I mean, technically the Fusion is our top seller, but we sell a ton of max presses and a ton of auto open clams as well in the 16 by 20. The one recommendation I'd give you, especially in sports, go for the 16 by 20 print size, and of course a quality machine, so you're not going to get numbers falling off throughout the season, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So what are we talking about next week on the Stahls TV Morning Show? Am I on it, or are you on it?
I'm definitely here. So next week we're going to be getting ready for the Atlantic City show, but we're going to talk a little bit about more spring trends. So on the flip side, we're going to talk about more retail and fan wear and different school trends that we're seeing. So on the other side, from team uniforms, but also trends that we're seeing this spring. So from blank apparel to decoration.
Good. So we always appreciate you attending the Stahls TV Morning Show live. We'd encourage you to go participate on the forum, read our latest blog posts on stahls.tv.com, and sign up for more live events. I'm Josh.
I'm
This is Courtney. Thanks for watching.